Hello and welcome to another episode of Paranormal People. Today I'm here with Jenson Smith. From a young age, Jenson always felt a presence guiding and coming through her. Initially, this connection manifested through music, performing, visits from deceased relatives, and precognitive dreams. However, in 2016, after a near-death experience in a car crash, the messages and visions started coming through at a rapid pace, prompting her to share her gift with others. Eager to continue her growth and join a community, she studied and graduated from the Holistic Studies Institute, thus beginning her career as a psychic medium. Now based in New York City, Jenson enjoys doing one-on-one readings with clients and using her psychic medium skills on paranormal TV shows, where she tunes into the energetic imprints of locations, connects with lingering spirits, and uses her psychic abilities to gain insights. She believes there is so much beauty, joy, and healing in the unseen dimension. Jenson, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me and for finding me.
It was, a bit of a tough one, actually, looking up psychics in America, because we had one recently from Britain. I'm not sure if you've managed to listen to the episode. And I thought it'd be really interesting to see how it goes from other countries as well, see if it's very similar or different. And you came up as quite a prolific one.
Oh, well, thank you. Wait, was that the episode where the woman's grandpa was in her house? Or that was your first episode, right?
That was the first ever episode, so that was a slightly different one. The other one was with somebody called Danielle, who is also a psychic medium.
Oh, cool. I need to listen to hers because I loved the one with the grandpa, and I loved how he was like scaring potential boyfriends and everything. That was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really good to get your thoughts on that as well a bit later in the episode. It looks like you've had a really diverse career. So could you start by telling us how your early life in Wisconsin influenced your path into the paranormal?
Thank you for asking. I didn't know anything about the paranormal world when I was a kid. I feel like my family focused a lot on music because I'm the youngest of three, and I have these two older siblings that were basically violin prodigies, like just incredible musicians. And so really my earliest memories are sitting in the car when we would drive up to the big city of Milwaukee, Wisconsin for their violin lessons. And then I followed and started playing cello. But I do, it's so funny. I remember my mom putting on a recording of this really cool series called, I think it was called Classical Composers for Kids. And they told the story of each composer, from childhood to coming into the spotlight, so to speak, and hearing about their lives. But I remember listening to the one on Beethoven, and it was almost like I could hear like a ringing or a muffling in my ear as I listened to it. It's funny, now I understand those things to be tuning into somebody's unique frequency, and it doesn't matter if you're here on this earthly plane or on the other side, the frequency continues. And so I wonder now if I was kind of picking up on that. But yeah, I don't know. So it was mainly, playing the cello. I play the cello, and then I was very into acting, and I loved that. And then when it came time to graduate, and so weird. But what is it about like being 18? They just like pronounce you an adult. And so I auditioned for NYU's acting conservatory, and then I went there. And now I'm just sort of lost in this story. But yeah, I would say it was mainly just a lot of music and playing outside. I have ADHD. If you can't tell, as do most psychic mediums that I know. I've yet to meet one who is very linear.
Can you tell me a little bit more? So you mentioned about the music side of things, and that's where it first started. And then you went into acting. So what have you done with the acting world?
Yeah. So with the acting, I always thought it was interesting because I would just feel something kind of like come through me and out of me, which I think a lot of people can connect to, like with the flow state, and like you don't know where you went, but you made something or something happened. And so I think that I really found that to be thrilling. Yeah, I don't know. It just felt like connecting to something greater than myself. And so I studied at NYU, and then I started working in TV and film, and have done various shows like Orange is the New Black and The Affair, which has Dominic West from your side of the pond, who's so lovely.
Okay, yeah.
And I did some work on Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and I'm also a filmmaker and really enjoy making my own work as well. And
oh wow.
Yeah. And then I ended up marrying an actor, even though I swore I would never date another actor. And then I did, yeah. And I currently also coach actors, as does my husband. So I still really have a foot in both worlds. And I truly, there is something to, I think channeling really is a part of so many professions. And so whether I'm channeling for a client, whether I'm, psychically feeling out somebody's home and then talking to somebody from the other side that may visit there, or I'm kind of directing and helping an acting client to channel and step into a character. It's all very similar.
That's really interesting. So you've managed to find a way to incorporate the psychic abilities that you have into your hobbies and your work, maybe in industries where you wouldn't normally see mediumship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And how do people tend to react when you're working on a film or in music and you tell people that you have these abilities? What's the usual reaction?
Well, usually with artists, they're interested in it and they're like, oh my God. And then I get to hear like fun stories of when they've had, visits from the other side or psychic experiences. Sometimes people are weirded out and are a little afraid. They're like, are you reading me right now? What are you seeing? I just always say to them, I really try to turn it on and off. And if somebody needs guidance I always feel like it's hardest to see your own life in general, and so I think readings are a great chance to get a bigger perspective and most importantly, like your higher self's perspective and your guide's perspective. And so I just say, I really try to not tune in unless somebody asks me to, although that said, I do sometimes get messages for people and then I have to navigate whether this is a person who would be open to it or would be pissed.
Of course. So I guess as we're speaking right now, you haven't tuned in, so you won't be feeling, there won't be anything from me. But if you wanted to, you could tune in and you could see more into that person. Is that correct?
For sure. Because it's so funny too, because then other times there'll be times where I'm not with someone, but I'll get something for them. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like, is this, what is this? And yeah, but it's all very gentle for the most part, because like with anything, I feel like, you have boundaries with all kinds of relationships. And I also try to do it within the psychic realm as well.
And is that ever very difficult? Because I guess you mentioned guides and we'll come to the car crash, if you don't mind, in a moment, which I imagine might be a little bit of a sensitive topic, but I understand that your psychic abilities became more prominent after your near-death experience back in 2016. And prior to that accident, was this something that you were still battling with, or was it really since that happened that this came to light for you?
Yeah, I think I didn't understand it prior to the car crash because it wasn't interrupting my daily life as often. I would kind of know things. It's funny, like when I was a kid, I would find myself saying what I thought were random thoughts to adults, like when my parents would have friends over and I would sometimes be met with angry or freaked out looks from them. And I think I was asking something that I thought I would get a random thought and then I would ask a question about it. And then, I think they would kind of feel like their privacy had been invaded, but there were things that I couldn't have known, and so I definitely had that as a child. And then when I moved to New York, it was a bit more overwhelming because I was just in such a concentrated area of people. And so I found that I would get kind of drained quickly, which I think introverts and empaths do. But I think I was getting more input, sort of psychic input. And then it would come out, if I'd had like a glass of wine, even just a half a glass of wine, sometimes my filter would get even worse than it already is. And then I would just say something random. And I remember one time I was out with a friend and her friend had just had a breakup like that day or something. And he was very sad. And I said, what's wrong with you? Did somebody from Russia break up with you? Like, why on earth would I say that? Like, I didn't know. And then he said she was Russian. And then we were all just quiet. And I was like, oh, well, okay. Yeah. So, it definitely happened before, but then, so I was, in 2016, we had been at my, cousin's wedding. And so I grew up in Wisconsin, as you said, but I also have family in Minnesota. And the wedding was in Minnesota. And there's this straight highway across the middle of Wisconsin, can never remember if it's 90 or 94, the highway. But anyway, I think it's 90. And we were headed home. We were probably like an hour and a half into the drive, and my dad was driving. My mom was in the front, and then my grandma was in the back seat with me. And I think she was like 92 at the time, or 91, maybe 92. And I just remember being concerned for her comfort in the car. I mean, she was tired. She'd just been to a wedding and she was 92. And I just had this weird feeling, and so I asked her if she wanted a pillow to, help her take a nap. And then I think she had strong abilities as well and just kind of used them in a different lens. And then she looked at me and she said, "You know what? I think I packed a second pillow. Would you look?" And so I did, and we got her all kind of propped up. And then even before the car crash, I was like, what is with me? Like, I just had a lot of coincidences to the point that I was like, am I witch? Like, what is this, And so I had just gotten a book called Psychic Self-Defense prior to the trip. And in the book, it had recommended, kind of putting yourself in a blue bubble, and then you let light shine into it, and it helps strengthen the barrier around you so you don't absorb as much as when you're just kind of free flowing. And then I had a sort of an asterisk to that, which was, you can't do this to other people without their permission, unless they're very young children or elderly and in need of a rest. So I was like, well, what a great opportunity to help my grandma take a nap, So I remember just feeling this light go around me and, kind of glancing and seeing my grandma fall asleep. And then all of a sudden, I was in like kind of a huge light, like a really, really bright light. And at the same time, I realized that we were crashing, that we were in the middle of a crash. And it's just so bizarre, about God, so 2016. So I don't know, 20 some years on prior, when I was 2, I was on that same spot of the highway, headed in the opposite direction to go to my great-grandfather's funeral, also in Minnesota. And my mom had lost control of the car, and we rolled over into a ditch. And I had this sudden feeling, like when I knew we were crashing and I could see this white light, that this was an exit option, or maybe the exit for my life. And that if we flipped, I knew we were going to die. I was just like, we're going to die if we flip. My dad was on, there was a 3-lane, it was so it's a six lanes of highway, 3 on each side, one going east, one going west. We were going east, and we were, like in the slow lane, quote unquote, in the States. And so we went across all 3 lanes through the guardrail into the ditch, but somehow the car didn't roll over, but did this weird, like up the hill, down the hill, and then switch directions. It was totally demolished. What's the word? Totaled. Totally totaled.
Yeah.
Totaled. But anyway, so we were in the middle of this going across the lanes towards the guardrail, which to me felt like an hour. And I just knew that guardrail would kind of be part of the deciding point. But then it dawned on me, why don't I ask to stay alive? And so I just said in my head, oh, wait, there's another thing I have to tell you too, but I'll say this part first. I said in my head, if this is my time to go, I totally get it. But if it's not, there is more I'd like to do. And then I felt my grandma, and I could feel her lifting and crossing, and like she was very ready to go. And my mom actually felt even further up, and like she was like gonna like really go. And my dad felt like very, I don't know, like not yes or no, but just something else, almost like going in a circle or something. His energy was like going in a circle, and like almost younger than the rest of ours, which is so interesting. And then all of a sudden, kind of woke up in the car, and I immediately turned to see if my grandma was okay, and she was very confused, but she was okay. And then I think I just yelled like, everybody get out of the car, because I was kind of afraid it was going to burst or something. Now I realize if it's not on fire, should maybe slowly move after one of these things. I was like, get out. And no one's phones were working. I could call out, I think, through my mom's or my dad's phone, but my phone, no one's phones were working. Everything was wrecked. And it was just so beautiful, that white light. Like, honestly, it was pretty tempting to just go. But I could feel it wasn't my time. And yeah, I don't know. I think everybody has these exit points. They're just not always as dramatic.
Yeah, of course. You hear that a lot with NDEs, don't you?
Yes.
With the white light. And I guess it sounds like just a usual trope, but it is really interesting as to what that light is. And I guess it sounds to me like it's really tempting. It's really easy to kind of say, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go towards it.
Yeah.
And it must have taken quite a lot of strength to not do that. I mean, was it your choice in the end? Did you feel like you did actually have that choice to say, yeah, I want to stay, or no, I want to go?
The sense I got was that because they were balancing so many people at the time, that my input helped make a difference, but they were kind of trying to discern where we all were on our journeys, you know? And then they just, it feels to me like something intervened with that guardrail, because I especially should have gotten really hurt because I was sitting, because we have the wheel on the other side, you know? So I was sitting on the left behind my dad. And so it was just strange that we didn't have more injuries.
So everybody got out fully okay in the end?
We were pretty much okay. My dad had some like bleeding on his arms. I hurt my hands quite a bit because I braced my hands really hard against the side, like as we were hitting. And I actually had a gig when I got back into New York a few days later to play cello. And I was still so shaken up. I hadn't even taken my cello out of its case. And I just showed up at this theater in Brooklyn to like sing and play cello. And I like had barely tuned. And as I started to play, it just hurt. Like it hurt. I had really sprained all the little muscles in my hands that you use. And I somehow got through the set. And then I think that's kind of when what happened started to sink in a little bit. Yeah, it's so weird though, because now I'm really kind of grateful because I don't feel afraid of dying. And obviously I don't, now that I'm a mom, so I definitely don't want to die until I get this kid raised. But you know, theoretically speaking, I don't feel afraid of dying. And it gave me such a gift because it opened me up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like a terrifying experience, but at the same time, as you say, you've taken the positive, and I guess it's given you that peace, which is really good to hear. And I'm so glad everyone was okay and that you were able to actually be here and talk to me today, because it could have gone completely differently. So I'm so happy to hear everybody was relatively unscathed after that crash. And I'm so sorry to hear it happened. I mean, it's something that I've never experienced, luckily, so far, and hopefully never will. But I know how much these can shake people up and really change their lives. So at least there was some positive that came from it. And following that crash, of course, your experiences with your mediumship did sort of change. And could you tell me a bit about how that change happened and how rapid that was and what you experienced?
Yeah, it was pretty fast. Like that summer, I remember, so at the time I lived alone in a studio in Manhattan in the city. And so I was just kind of like, you know, had much more free time than I do now. Yeah, I look back, I'm like, oh my God, I could try anything back then. But I remember watching Netflix, like on my TV, and I started getting, like, if a character was about to have physical symptoms on a show, I would get them in the scene before. And I was like, what the fuck is happening?
Wow.
Yeah, like I'd like start breathing hard or start sweating. One time my nose started bleeding and I was like, I'm fucking losing my mind. What is going on? And then I was having like just crazy dreams that I now think people were trying to come through and show me things, and I didn't know who they were. And I was like, I'm losing my mind. And then, yeah, I remember hanging out with a friend in Brooklyn and like sitting on a stoop with her. And I was like, what do you think this is? Like, do you think I'm like a witch or something? And then of course we saw a cat across the street and we're like, ah. I was like, what the fuck, man? And then, you know, luckily, the physical symptoms I would say were the biggest thing. And I did start getting feelings about people, especially when I was ordering coffee. Like I would just go, that was kind of my first, I don't know, I would always go get coffee in the morning. Now I always make coffee. I'm so boring. But anyway, I would go to a cute coffee shop and get coffee. And usually whoever I was talking to, I would get kind of like, I would see something about them or sense something that they were grappling with. And And I just, so like a lot was happening. And then one day I was doing laundry in the basement of my building. God bless my old building and its laundry machines. Amen. And I saw this neighbor of mine, and we'd never really spoken before. But because we don't in New York, well, actually in my current building in Queens, everybody knows everyone. But actually in Manhattan, people talk less to their neighbors, I find. And, I don't know why. Again, one of these psychic things, right? I was like, I don't know why I'm saying this, but I am. And I made a joke about tarot cards. And then she said, I knew it. I fucking knew it. You're psychic. And I was like, what? I don't know. She's like, no, I am psychic. I come from a long line of psychics. And one of my special skills is spotting other psychics.
Oh,
and
okay.
it was amazing because I was like, well, I don't know what's going on with me. And so, she kind of took me under her wing and helped me believe in my abilities. And I remember, it was just somebody that I could kind of say like, hey, I just had this. Am I getting anything? Like I remember there was somebody in her life and I got information about him suddenly. And so I texted her. I was like, I'm seeing water. And then all of a sudden I was underneath the sink. And then I went back to the water. And she said, oh, well, he lives on the water and he's a plumber. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense, So that was kind of helpful. And then she pointed him in the direction of, there was this amazing man who sadly just passed away earlier this year named Stephen Robinson. And he started a place called the Holistic Studies Institute, where he helped people enhance and sort of nourish and grow their psychic medium abilities. And so she suggested I study with him. And so I did. Yeah. And then he kind of helped me put it into perspective because it really comes through people differently and it's gorgeous. I mean, people have it comes through in the randomest of ways, like there was this one woman who would sort of get messages and then she would see an animal, like sort of in her mind's eye, like drop something at their feet. And then whatever the animal dropped at their feet was the psychic message. And like, that's how it comes through her. You know what I mean? Like she said, I see a snake dropping a script at your feet and you're going to shoot it in Texas. And I was like, oh, I'm so sick of writing things. No, it's not happening. And then, lo and behold, 2020 before the pandemic, I'm shooting a horror film I wrote in Texas, so it's really cool. It comes through people in such different ways. And anyway, so I'm very grateful to that neighbor and to Stephen Robinson.
Almost fated.
Yeah.
By the sounds of things. And is fate something you believe in?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think our guides are like, this person needs to meet this person. Oh, good. They did it. Oh, wait, that one hasn't met that person. Let's try again. Like I definitely. Yeah. What about you? Do you believe in fate?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do. Yeah, I think everything to a degree happens for a reason. I guess it's always difficult when you've got horrible things going on like wars, like we're seeing here in Europe, where you have the Russia-Ukraine invasion and you think, surely that wasn't fated. But then I guess life works mysteriously, doesn't it? And you never know what the end purpose is. And certainly for smaller things, like soulmates and meeting people. And I think that's all fated to a degree. But I think from the conversation I had with Danielle, who was a psychic medium here in the UK, she said that there is an element of fate, but you still get a choice as to which path you take. Is that something you would agree with?
Yeah, I would. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you can almost make your own fate, I guess, in the end, but there is a pre-written or a number of pre-written paths is the way that it was described to me, I think.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with her. I feel like we have these grooves, like things, lately I've been getting imprints as far as like water going through sort of a ravine or a tributary or something. And they kind of show me like different tributaries that all lead to the same river or in a general direction of a river. And so, yeah, I agree with her. Yeah.
Okay. And so for people who are listening who haven't had a psychic reading, what does it look like? So what does a session with you actually look like? What can clients expect when they come to you?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I always tell people to think about some questions ahead of time because, it's their hour. And so we might as well focus on the areas that are of most importance to them. And sometimes even upon somebody asking a question, I start to get, it kind of like gets it going. I start to get psychic imprints and then it's great. And then, the psychic question, it's also cool too, because, I'll jot all of their questions down, but they don't necessarily go in the order that they've asked. Like sometimes people say, oh, am I supposed to live where I'm living now, or should I live somewhere else? And I'm in this job and I like it, but is there anything I need to know, or blah, 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 blah. And then I'm also worried about this friend and da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing their job, but now I'm in a different location. Like say I'm giving a reading to somebody in the city. I'm seeing their job, but now I'm seeing like a huge open lawn. And I'm like, God, why am I on a lawn? So then to me, that would be like a university setting. And so then I would maybe say like, were you possibly thinking about teaching or going back to school? And then they're like, oh my God, yes. But even just the act of asking the question about their job, all of a sudden it's like somebody pulls back all of the blinds suddenly. And I'm like, well, then why am I in Washington State on a lawn, And they're like, oh, well, my best friend lives in Seattle and da 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 da. And then all of a sudden, oh, now you're moving in with your best friend in Seattle. Or spirit is telling you, you can follow that instinct and you'll be okay. I mean, I feel like that's a lot of what readings are, is I'll end up channeling something that somebody has kind of like really wanted or been afraid to acknowledge or has buried down and tried to put away in a way, and then they kind of like bring it back and say, no, this is important to you. Give it a shot. Or sometimes I'll just get something really random, like I forget what, because people ask a lot of questions. There was this one woman who, I don't even remember what it was about, but I just kept seeing a seahorse, and I was like, do you have any connection to a seahorse? Because again, sometimes I'll get something really specific, like I'll see a seahorse, and then they'll be like, that was my grandma's favorite thing. She collected seahorse shells or whatever they become. And then I'm like, well, that's your grandma saying hi. But this lady had no connection to a seahorse, and I didn't really either. And I was like, well, just keep it in the back of your mind. Maybe it's going to pop up. Sure enough, a couple weeks later, she was on vacation and she took a selfie, and there was a giant mural of a seahorse behind her head.
How weird.
Isn't that crazy? So it was just like spirit affirming, like, you need to take time for yourself, like go on this trip. And then who knows, maybe she met someone, you know what I mean? It's just like one thing leads to another in a really beautiful way. Yeah. And then I also, I'm also a medium. So, I'll say to people, if you want to talk to somebody on the other side, we can definitely, sometimes people are chattier one day than another. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about how they feel about you. Who knows if they're just busy in a meeting up there or something. But, and so then I offer that on the table too. And sometimes it can be helpful to have a photo where I can see their eyes, because, for me, eyes are truly the window to the soul. I mean, it is insane. Like whether somebody is alive or deceased, looking into someone's eyes will take you places for me.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, I think, in general.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always found that you can kind of read what somebody's really thinking behind their eyes. Definitely.
Yeah.
And the mediumship is especially interesting to me because this podcast is predominantly about ghosts, spirits, that kind of thing. Although the psychic bits are so fascinating because it sounds to me like with the psychic, I don't know how you'd say it, psychic, I don't know. With the psychic ability, it sounds like it's almost a puzzle for you when you're doing the reading, that you're trying to kind of piece together what you're seeing. So you kind of, it sounds to me like you're getting random images or somebody speaking to you, telling you things, you've got to try and piece it all together. Is that kind of, am I getting the gist?
Absolutely. Because it comes through in different ways. Like sometimes look at images, so sort of like clairvoyance, like clear seeing. I get a lot of feelings like clairsentience, clear feeling, clairaudience, hearing things. Usually I get kind of a collective voice from their guides. Sometimes I'll get an individual voice and one will kind of step forward. There's usually different personalities in people's guides. I often get, sometimes there'll be one that's very nurturing. I have one that is incredibly sarcastic and naughty. He's very funny. And I was like, oh my God, you can't say that. Anyway, so sometimes people's like, well, they'll kind of balance each other out. It's really cool. Yeah. So I definitely hear things too. And then, and then just like I'm getting, sort of psychic imprints or options from people's guides. And then all of a sudden I'll like get out of the corner of my eye, like a grandma who looks vaguely like Vanessa Redgrave or something. And Vanessa Redgrave is so beautiful. And I was like, God, I'm seeing something. And she really reminds me of Vanessa Redgrave. And then longer hair. And then now I feel like my lips are dry and I don't know why. And they're like, oh, well, that sounds like my grandma. And she had an illness that affected her lips or something. And then it'll kind of get stronger and stronger. And then all of a sudden grandma wants to talk about somebody else in your family that she's worried about. And then it kind of the conversation starts.
And do you ever get anything from the kind of the mediumship side? Do you ever get anything super specific come through?
Yeah, I do. The other day, it was kind of a funny one. It was like, I was talking to someone's loved one, and they were trying to describe the grocery store. And they said, I was like, it just looked like it was getting, like they were getting a new one or it was getting torn down. And it turned out to be the same grocery store chain was tearing down its current sort of structure and rebuilding it with a new one. And he just wanted to comment on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'll be like something really mundane like that. And I'm trying because there's so many different kinds of specifics. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I had someone. There's so many people. I kind of channel and then like I don't know where it goes. It like leaves me and then I forget everything. But there was somebody I think it was their grandpa had passed, and then the grandpa started talking about that person's fiance, and that meant a lot to her because they had never gotten to meet, and so he said his name, which of course I'd now forgotten. And anywho, and so that meant a lot to her. Yeah, it's really specific sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're kind of communicating with spirits, ghosts, whatever you want to call them,
Mm-hmm.
do you see anything as well, or is it mostly auditory?
It's both. So I'll get often like with clients get a visual and they'll start to show me like visual features to kind of so that I can tell them what I'm seeing, and usually will be something that makes sense to that person, you know? Like there was somebody who had French in their background. This was an American, but the man described his hat as a chapeau, and that meant something to her, you know? And then like the features came in my mind's eye. But I also will see, and this is kind of the fun, spooky part of day-to-day life, which I happen to like really enjoy, is I'll pass places and I'll see someone on the other side that's kind of like I'll see them. Like I was biking earlier, and I was actually doing a quick errand in the city, so I just biked over the bridge, and I passed an old Catholic school and what I think was it was a church and maybe a nunnery or something. But I could see an older woman in a nun's outfit, and it felt like World War II era standing outside. And she just kind of smiled at me when I passed her. There is somebody who sometimes stands in my front hallway. There's a gentleman who just kind of looks like he's checking on things. I think he must have lived here at some point. And he'll just stand there for a second and then go. Yeah. So there's that too.
When you see these spirits out and about, aside from the very obvious fact that they're in clothes that people probably wouldn't wear these days, is there anything else that stands out about them that you go, right, okay, I know you're not a living person?
Yeah. Well, they're kind of translucent, and they can kind of go in and out, kind of flicker in and out. Like they'll be there and then like go away and then come back. And there's if they are there's a lot of different spirits, I think, come back for different reasons or are visiting for different reasons. But if they are in a healthy place, it's so interesting. It's so much like being alive, to be honest. If they're in a healthy place, which most are like, well, I don't know. I guess the majority are. It depends on where I am, actually. But there's a different quality to their energy, because I feel like when I'm talking to somebody who's alive, like I can feel them in the present moment, which is like such a cool connecting point. But you can also feel like their past and a little bit of like, oh man, I don't want to go back to work tomorrow. Like you can start to feel other things like filling in, or like, do I have any pizza left in the fridge? Like there's like other things, but I guess that's it. You're helping me figure it out, Alex. Thank you. With them, it's very like time is different. I would say that's it. We found it. It's like time is different because time is not time. It's just now. It's just fluid. And then I also start to wonder too, like when I see someone really clearly and they're kind of see-through, like a really clear see-through dead person, which is, kind of fun. Then I wonder, like, good God, am I seeing like a parallel time or a dimension? Like then I start to like, sometimes I wig out with that because I'm like, what does that mean? The saddest one I ever saw was, when we were chatting earlier and you mentioned like coming to the States for Halloween and different places, I like on our, my husband and I took a baby moon, and we both love ghosts, so naturally we went to Salem for our baby moon. And
I'd love to go there one
oh
day.
my God, you have to go. It is so fun. And as we were on a ghost tour, I saw the spirit of a little girl sitting on the street. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Like, oh, man, that was... it was nagging at me, And then later on the tour, the guide was saying how when somebody would get accused of witchcraft, they would also often or really accused of any crime, their children would often go with them to jail, which is nuts. And then if you got out of jail, you had to pay for your time in jail. I mean, it's all so fucked up.
Wow.
And so when I saw the little girl, I don't know, it just felt like somehow she had gotten disconnected from her mom and was dead, but waiting for her mom. And so that was one that did not feel good. And like, I really wish I had just pieced out from the tour for a minute and gone back and like helped cross her over. Cause that was like, that one felt fucked up. I just put you on a big loop. Sorry.
No, I mean, is that something that happens kind of often in terms of, do you often see spirits that need help with crossing over, they can't quite move on?
Yeah.
Or is it quite a rare occurrence?
Well, I used to find it to be a more rare occurrence, and just this past summer, has started to happen more frequently for me. I have this really great friend who actually moved from the States to the UK. And she is so cool because she is very much into all things paranormal as well. And, oh, there goes another siren. Can you hear it?
I can. Very, very New York.
It's very... so I was sharing a dream I had with her that I was like, I felt more like, there's like dreams of processing your life. And then sometimes I feel like I get sort of like an assignment or something from my guides in a dream, like visits from people who are about to cross over or who have crossed over. But then this one felt like light like that because there's a lightness to it when they do that in your dreams. And it's not like a regular, like, whoa, I'm dreaming feeling. And so in this dream, I was going to a conference, but I got pulled into a room that was between two floors that had always been there. It looked really, really old, like old wood. And there were a bunch of people in the room. And then we all sat down, and then they said inside of my mind, we're going to send you one at a time so you don't get overwhelmed. And I just shared with her the dream because I thought it was so interesting. And then I went back to like quote unquote human life and went down into this conference room, and then I woke up. And then a few days later, I was running an errand in the city, and it was like kind of late at night. And so my psychic defenses were down, so to speak. Usually I try to kind of like wrap up my aura a bit more tightly when I go into the city. I really need to move to somewhere with more nature, to be quite honest. But anyway, I all of a sudden I felt woozy, like really woozy, like I was high or something. And I was like, God, oh, get me off of this hot ass gross. I mean, it was like hot New York City summer day. And then, I just felt really fucking off. And I was like, I felt a presence with me. And I was like, who is this? Like, who are you? And you can't reside inside of me. I got a little spooked, to be honest, because it felt like, feels like somebody who's not quite in their right mind and might kind of like follow you around or something or misinterpret a smile. And so that night, as I was falling asleep, I'll often get messages in like, or I guess I should say another place I get messages is that sort of beautiful space in between being awake and being asleep when you're really, really, really open. And all of a sudden I saw this woman, and she looked like late 80s New York, and her eye makeup was kind of all over, and she looked like she was high on something. And she kind of like showed me my husband and my son sleeping, and then pulled me outside. And I was like, she was showing me Hell's Kitchen. That's a part of Manhattan that used to be like really fucking crazy. It was called Hell's Kitchen for a reason.
Lived up to the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Like just nuts. And she showed me Hell's Kitchen. And then she got into a car, and she was sitting behind the driver's seat, but it was on the British side of the car where you guys drive.
The wrong side, I think a lot of you would say.
Yeah, the wrong side or the right side, And so I knew she was trying to tell me that she had moved to the States, but was from the UK or from anywhere that... Is it just the UK that drives on the right side of the street, or does anybody else?
I think Australia.
Okay, good for them. And
I think that, yeah.
So she was showing me that. And then this was actually quite terrifying. Then a car, like a big truck, came towards her and like half scalped the top of her head.
Oh.
And I was like, holy fuck. And so the next day I was like, I don't know what this was. This wasn't just a bad thing. This was somebody, and I was still tired. Even like after having slept, I was like, something has attached itself to me. I think it's this woman and I need to help her cross over. So like you do with your partner who also watches ghost shows,
Yeah.
I was like, Lucas, I need to help this woman cross over. And so I was like, will you just sit here with me? And so I lit a candle just to kind of have a light for her to come towards. And then I just asked Spirit to open an opening for her, but it was hard to get her to trust me. I mean, part of her must have trusted me enough to follow me home and like attach. And I think I was open enough for her to kind of like slip in. And I could see her sort of like standing back and I could feel that she was on drugs. And then I all of a sudden got a really intense image of a man that she had been dating who I think had also died, but she was waiting for him. There's a lot of this like trying to find people thing. And I just said, I'm so sorry, honey. He is not here. He is not here, but your family is there. And I felt older people who had more British sounding accents start to kind of come around the opening. And then this was so cool. Then I felt like the healthy version of herself stand beside me. And once she saw her healthy self, once she remembered her wholeness, she started to walk towards me and then she just disappeared and it just got really light in the room. So I told my friend, who now lives in the UK, and she's like, don't you remember that dream you had? Because we send each other voice memos on WhatsApp. And shout out to your WhatsApp. And she said, don't you remember? They said they would send you one at a time. And so since then, I've been getting, some pretty lost souls in need of help crossing. It's been an interesting summer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds, I mean, it must have been quite frightening as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Being kind of led out to the road and seeing something quite graphic. And
yeah.
But I guess for you, it sounds like the priority is helping that person, and that probably takes over that fear.
It does kind of, because like the scalping was terrifying. That was absolutely terrifying. But it like it was, still makes me a little nauseous. But like then it really becomes, in a weird way, it feels like a more urgent version of a message. Like when I get a message for somebody, it'll knock a few times. And then once I give the message, the feeling releases and I feel like a sense of like, oh, okay, great. And this one was an urgent knocking, and it felt like an urgent knocking from her, but more like from her guides, really.
Yeah.
Like we haven't been able to reach her and we need somebody to kind of intervene.
Yeah. It's an amazing story, but yeah, it's so hard for, I think, myself and so many other people to imagine what that must be like. Just, waking up in the night and all of that happening and then just kind of going about your normal life afterwards. It sounds quite amazing.
Oh, okay.
And have you had an experience before where you have felt kind of, because these all sound, as frightening as that was, quite peaceful to a degree. Have you ever felt unsafe from a spirit that has kind of approached you or that you've seen?
Yeah, I've had some weird ones where like I'll like feel them kind of loop in. Like I've had them come really close to my face and then like swoop away really fast. And then I'm like, no. Like I just have a firm like, nope, don't do that. Because that freaks me out. I don't enjoy that. Yeah. I'm trying to think of like one that was really, I would say the most intense sensation I've ever had that I really was like, I don't want to go back to sleep, was during COVID. So I live, as you've heard with all these sirens, how many blocks am I from the hospital? Maybe 8 blocks or something. And it was really hitting Queens hard. And when I would fall asleep, I would just like see people rising and it just, it broke my heart. I was like, this is too much.
And when you say you could see people rising, in what kind of sense?
It felt like I could sort of like see bodies and then I would see light shooting up from them and they were all crossing at various rates, but at the same time.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to, religion is so personal, so it's very awkward bringing it up in these things, but it's very difficult. It's so difficult to avoid the topic. What are your beliefs in that respect? I mean, do you think that there is maybe like on the other side, you might already know, but is there kind of a clear definition of a heaven, a hell, a purgatory in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, the sense I get is, I was raised pretty religiously. Like I had to go to school. I had to go to church every Sunday. And I was raised Lutheran. My family is very like sort of Norwegian American, Norwegian Lutheran. Anywho, so I had to do that. And so, I was sort of taught that. But then now that I am in this world. But the kind of church I went to didn't really believe in hell or purgatory. And I have to say that feeling, so that's what I was taught. But then now what I've experienced is that there really isn't a hell or a purgatory. It really feels like this place of light and beauty and fluidity and community, and that there are these groups of souls that are linked together and come down in different roles and assignments. And so it feels like when you cross over again, because I think we do this many times, that it's a great place to like recharge your batteries, for lack of a better metaphor. It feels like a healing space and a processing space, And so I think when someone may be particularly naughty or cruel in this lifetime, I do get the sense that they have to make it right in another one. And so it's not necessarily hell, but like you're going to have a lot of learning to do in the next one.
Yeah. It's something I've heard a lot, actually, is there kind of being this plane and almost like each life being a teaching or learning experience. And I guess there might be some choice as to whether you come back to Earth or, again, whether you have some sort of assignment, you're a guide or something like that, which is a really interesting take. And it's very different to the usual, right? There's a heaven, there's a hell, there's a purgatory. Bad means hell, good means heaven. It's a lot less defined, isn't it? And clear cut. Are you of the opinion or the thought that we kind of get a choice to come back and have another life, live another life?
I feel like you keep coming back until you've done what you needed to do, is my sense. But I don't know, maybe you can, maybe if you've done a lot, you can be like, can I peace out and be a guide now? Like, I'm done paying taxes. I'm done falling in love. That shit hurts when it doesn't work out. Like, I don't know. I get the sense that, maybe it's kind of like my accident. Maybe you get to kind of put your 2 cents in, but they also have an idea for you. Yeah, it's funny. It's been really interesting talking to people's loved ones on the other side, because, most frequently I get that they're part of the same soul group and they're connecting with them on this life, and the person's still here that just really, really misses them, and they are looking out for them, and they'll do it again in another capacity together, have another run. But every once in a while I talk to somebody's loved one and it does feel like they've ascended to another role, another, I guess, plane or vibration or something. And that's pretty fucking cool, man.
It is. It's a cool thought, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm like, holy, that was, whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, the thought of different dimensions and things is a really fascinating one. I mean, I had an episode with Opus, who helps kind of paranormal experiences over in the US as well, actually. And that included a lot of alien talk and extraterrestrial, but it sounded to me like a lot of it can almost be part and parcel of the same thing when it comes to there being different dimensions, planes. I think maybe just each plane or each dimension contains different forms of beings, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it really is fascinating. And I mean, there's so little we know about the universe and everything that goes on outside of our bubble of Earth.
Yeah.
That's why it's so fascinating. Speaking to people like yourself who have a different view on these things, and obviously completely different experiences and things that you deal with every day that a lot of people don't. And speaking to Danielle, again, the other psychic medium from the UK I spoke to, she had mentioned that to a degree, a lot of people do have the ability to become a psychic medium through sort of training and practice. Is that something that you think as well?
I do. I like Danielle. I want to hang out with Danielle. I totally agree with that. I think especially when we're little kids, it's still super, super open. And then we kind of start to think in a more binary fashion. And strengthen our minds and our bodies, but you can strengthen your own psychic skills, your own mediumship skills. And I think it's kind of fun to, a really easy one is you just think of someone and then they call you or text you and you're like, well, that's you being psychic. You felt they're like, I'm thinking about you, Alex. And then you get a text, or kind of you can look at a photo of someone you don't know and look into their eyes, and maybe your friend knows the person, and just kind of see what comes to you, and then they can help you decipher it. I think we all have it. And it's like
Yeah.
you have to remember it or something.
Yeah, it must be buried deep. I mean, it's really interesting what you mentioned there in terms of those almost coincidences, but it's not a coincidence because it's too outlandish for it to be a coincidence. I mean, I had just the other day, I was thinking of a friend, Lee, who I hadn't spoken to for years and years and years. And I was just thinking about him. I was just thinking, some of the times we had when we were teenagers and how I'd like to maybe speak to him again. And I kid you not, I mean, 10 minutes later, he came out of nowhere on Facebook Messenger and sent me a message.
Wow.
Just kind of saying, how have things been? And I'm like, I haven't spoken to him for years. What are the chances of me thinking about him? Yeah. And then him messaging me? It was just so bizarre. And anyone skeptical would be like, that's just a coincidence. But that happens way too often, I feel, for it to just be coincidences.
Oh, 100%.
So I just thought that was so interesting to experience because I've never had it happen like that before. And especially somebody who I genuinely haven't spoken to, had anything to do with for so many years. We just lost touch because he lives in the north of England. I moved to the south of England and now I've moved around different jobs, all that kind of thing. And it was just the most bizarre thing.
That's so crazy. Yeah. And isn't it so beautiful too? It's like, holy fuck, that's gorgeous. Yeah, and it never gets old either. It never gets old. Oh my God. Like, this is so cheesy, but it's fucking real. Like, I remember, so I keep saying I grew up in Wisconsin, but yeah. So I grew up in Wisconsin and I was on Lake Michigan in one of the Great Lakes, and across from Wisconsin is Michigan, the state of Michigan. And I remember being really little and standing on the beach because that same grandma I was in the car accident with had a cabin right along Lake Michigan. And that's an area which I think has a lot of ghosts and a lot of indigenous spirits that want to be recognized and acknowledged. That I would love to do some digging and research and in that area. Anyway, but I feel like you're going to do more stuff like that all over on location, Alex.
Do you think?
I do. I'm getting a sense of it becoming location specific or something. I don't know why. I was like, oh, I wonder if Alex, and then I was like, oh, then Alex is going to shoot something and it's going to be at South by Southwest. Do you know that film festival in Austin?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was like, Alex is going to be there. But anyway, what was I
interesting.
Random coincidences. That's right. So I was standing on the beach and I was little and I was kind of in between I have a lot of cousins and they're either older than me. Well, I guess everyone has cousins that are either older or younger, but I'm a smack dab middle child cousin, So I wasn't really with the age group of either ones or sort of part one, part two. And I was standing on the sand, I guess feeling sorry for myself. And then I looked across the water and Lake Michigan, it's a lake, but it really feels like an ocean. It's huge. You cannot see the end of it. And I just felt like my person I was supposed to be with was on the other side of it. And I think I told my mom and she was like, okay, yeah. Very, very romantic. But I just fucking knew it. I knew it. And then I forgot about it because I was 9 and I guess I was so into dudes my whole life. I was 9, but whatever. Anyway, and then lo and behold, I've been living in New York for fucking ever. And I meet my now husband and the first summer we're together. He says, I have family in Michigan. We go to Michigan. We are on the other side of the lake, directly across from where my grandma's cabin was, spent doing the 4th of July, where I used to do the 4th of July with my grandma. And I was like, oh, I was right. Holy shit.
Crazy.
Isn't it so crazy? It's so beautiful. It's so weird. Yeah.
Wow. So going back to, I guess, your TV appearances and documentaries that you've been involved in as a psychic medium.
Yeah.
How have you found working in media differs from your kind of more private readings and what do you enjoy about each?
Yeah. Well, so that's a newer area for me because I've been working in media as an actor for a long time. So this is a newer zone, but I love it because it's the combo of everything, because I really think there is something that happens. I was talking about this with actually an acting client of mine the other day. There is something happens when you turn on the camera. It feels like it's alive and it's something really magical about capturing the present moment. I guess we are right now. And so to get to be in a space and then see what comes through is I don't know, it's just really fun. I really like it. And it's, like I said, I've done more of that on camera from the acting perspective. Now I'm stepping into this more and I really love it. I really love it, you know.
And for people listening, could you talk a bit about the documentaries you've done specifically and what they were about and where they can be watched?
Yeah. So I was involved in one that is going to release this fall. And I'm actually not one of the featured people in it. I just worked on it for a while, to be totally clear. But it's amazing. It's by Lana Wilson, who has made a bunch of cool stuff. She made the documentary Miss Americana with Taylor Swift and
Oh, wow.
Pretty Baby with Brooke Shields. And this is her new one called Look Into My Eyes. And so that was really interesting because I got to, you know, film in different locations. And those are mostly like readings based, you know, so I was like doing readings on camera. So it wasn't too different than what I do aside from the camera crew being there. And but then now I'm potentially going to be working on something on a new show that kind of has a cool crossover between run-of-the-mill paranormal ghost shows, but it has kind of a emphasis on music and musicians. And so I can't say too much about it yet, but I'm very excited about that one because I get to tap into all the different sides that I've sort of been interested in my whole life. And then it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's really fun. It's really fun. And I think it's nice. I kind of like doing like on location stuff because, you know, I can help the people in a space and help them feel more at ease or realize they have a friend that lives with them who is dead, but very much their friend rather than being scared of it. Or if somebody needs help crossing. And then I also have been, you know, really personally trying to open myself up to the feeling of like the spirit that comes with the land. And so what does the land want? What does the land need? And, you know, I feel a lot of pain in the earth right now, you know, and so it's like, it needs more, in my opinion, you know, nature needs our love, needs our attention. And so that's been kind of painful, but also fascinating to connect to. And so that is something that I am interested in partnering with filmmakers to create content around like specific, you know, maybe towns or regions and what are they, perhaps the indigenous people on the other side have to say about it. What does the land have to say about it? There is a lot there that I think is really cool.
Definitely, yeah. It's a really interesting take, isn't it? Because, you know, people who've passed, like you said, indigenous people, it's not something that you really see very often, isn't it? People using their ability to tap into that kind of thing and provide us more history as well on these different areas.
Yeah, so much that wasn't recorded or was passed down orally and then people passed away and then to find a way to bring it back, put it on record, honor it, like so beautiful. Yeah. I personally find golf courses to be particularly sad. I mean, I think there's
of all places.
It's so funny. Like, I feel like, you know, it's okay for everyone to have, you know, different things that you indulge in. You know what I mean? Like, oh, what was I watching yesterday? I was watching a British show. I think it's called Discovery of Witches. And I was like, where is this my whole life? So I was just like, I'm like lapping that up just like all day long. So everyone has their, you know, indulgences. But I was somewhere that had a lot of golf courses and I just felt a heavy sadness, just a really deep sadness from the land. And like you rerouted our streams and our nature and the pain of the, like, it was just like, whoa, it was so overwhelming. I was like, hold on a second. Whoo. Okay. I'll see what I can do to help y'all. I don't know what yet, you know, but TBD, you know, I'll do it. Yeah. So I feel a calling towards that and I'm not quite sure how to do it, but I feel like, you know, maybe it can be through media, you know?
Yeah. And that's a good point you've mentioned there as well, because obviously things have changed so much over the years with all the industrialization we have and commercialization. It's just, there's, you know, the cities being built on all this history and even history being knocked down. And I can imagine that does cause, I mean, it causes me sadness knowing that it's happened. And that, you know, like in the UK specifically, most of our old buildings are now kind of confined to a lot of the smaller villages, like in the Cotswolds here and maybe Devon, Dorset, York. We have lots of nicely conserved buildings, but most of the time now you just get these kind of prefabricated ugly buildings and they're taking the place of all this history and it completely changes the identity of the country, really. I think a lot of people come to the UK expecting Oxford, like I think Discovery of Witches that you mentioned might be based around Oxford or something, but it's quite Yeah. And they come here expecting, this lovely, beautiful, amazing country, but actually so much of it has been demolished for skyscrapers. I guess exactly the same in much of America as well.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually really sad. And it's not something you really think about very often in terms of, do you know what? The people who used to live here, they must be turning in the grave. It sounds like they almost are, quite literally turning in the grave about what's changed.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Oh, that's so interesting because I hold the UK up to such a high. I'm like, oh, they just do things better over there.
Oh, we do the same here. We're like, it's like when we went to New York in October, we thought, oh, we'd love to live here. Not necessarily the city. The city's really cool, but it's like, I wouldn't want to live there. But I was speaking to you earlier about Dobbs Ferry, which is about 40 minutes away from New York. And oh my God, I mean, amazing place. And it's so clean. And we just it's so much cleaner than the UK and so much nicer, and the people are friendlier. But it's interesting how it's always greener on the other side, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And you were in a particularly cute place. That's so funny that I have a connection there. And it's it is, gosh, that is a really cute, magical place. And that is one that I have to say, it feels like it has, they really protect, gosh, what is that? The aquifer? They have the aquifer, you can walk along I don't know, probably butchering the word, but you can walk through, when I go to my brother-in-law's who lives there, we walk from the train through the woods and then up a sort of side set of stairs that leads to the back of a school and then to the neighborhood that his brother lives in. So it's really it feels like it's embraced somewhat the land. So maybe that's part of why it feels so happy. It's also just really damn cute. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's so sad to just see it. It feels so soulless for just to have a prefab building put down. And also, isn't it strange that overall, I mean, just thinking about the population in the world, isn't the population trending down?
I'd have to look at that because I thought it was I was just under the impression it was on the increase because at least in the UK, the population's booming.
Really? Okay.
A lot of it's due to people coming over from other countries. So I don't know whether that's due to people having more babies or what it is.
Gotcha. Are people immigrating in? Yeah, because I know fewer people are having children and are tending to have children later. Maybe that's just in specific countries.
Yes, that is something I've heard, definitely. And I think these days as well, because coming back to wars and you've got environmental issues and things, I think people sometimes decide not to because it's I don't want to bring children into this cruel world. And I think there's a lot of that as well. People they're on the fence because they don't know whether, what the world's going to look like in the next 5-10 years. But it is, like you said, people are having children older as well, which is interesting. I guess a lot of people want to kind of travel, don't they, and live a bit before they then settle down, which could be a part of it. But it is a really interesting point you've raised. So I'll definitely have to research that after this. Yeah,
because do we really need all of these new buildings, or can we put some love into the old buildings, or can we make other areas more affordable? Or I don't know. There's got to be a way to make it more affordable rather than just tearing things down.
Yeah.
I guess I like old shit because I talk to dead people. But
I'm in the same boat. I think it always comes down to money, doesn't it? If it's going to be quicker and cheaper. But I think certainly places like the UK, apparently we need a house built every 2 minutes to be able to support the population. And that's just impossible. So I think a lot of it's kind of, right, we need to get houses built as quickly as possible to accommodate everyone. And what really shocked me when I went to the US was the houses were so big, they were all detached, whereas here they're very squished together, very, very small in comparison for a lot more money. So here, because we have a lot less land, it has to be all squished together. And again, it's just this constant kind of balancing act, I suppose, of having somewhere suitable to live, but also getting it out as quickly, as cheaply as possible, making a profit. And it's just a shame, isn't it? But it is such an interesting look, from the spiritual side as to what the kind of spirits that have lived there historically, or even quite recently, I suppose, that sadness that must come with that.
Yeah.
And how things have changed. And I guess that brings me to another question I had, which you might not have the answer to, but do you feel that spirits do how do they see time? Are they stuck in the 1940s if they died in the 40s, or do they see the advancements? Which I guess they do.
I sense that they do see the advancements, because I've had people comment about things politically from the other side, which I think is really interesting. I'm always so I think they do see the advancements. Yeah. I had, somebody, who had suffered from dementia, and they died when we still had President Obama in office. And then when they crossed over, they were quite shocked to see what had happened since he left office and all the sadness and destruction that had occurred. And I'm a psychic medium. You can probably guess I'm really fucking on the left in the States, but whatever. All the fucked up shit Trump did to fuck shit up. I'll just say it. But this person on the other side said very, very, very clearly, she was so up to date on politics and it had become very important to her. And then she said that there were a coalition, I'm going to knock on wood so this is keep going. There were a coalition of spirits actively working to help keep things from falling apart. Like politically active. I was blown away. I just felt so neutral to me, but it felt like an emergency situation. And then this was, gosh, when did I do this? This was like far before, Biden, because we're on I don't know when this will air, but it was a woof. It is a nerve-wracking time here.
Very near. When is the election?
It is in November.
So yeah.
Yeah. So this happened, gosh, I think maybe it was wintertime, early 2024. And so the spirit said to me, there's a kind of a coalition of us working to try to help. And I was like, holy shit. And then she said, so fucking clearly, the women will decide. And so I just assumed, okay, this is all about Roe versus Wade and them taking, the Supreme Court taking our right to choose away from women and the pain and sadness and terrible things that occur from that. And then when Biden stepped down and Kamala Harris stepped forward, my husband reminded me, he's like, remember when you said that the women, he's like, is this big, I was like, oh my God. And then anyway, I'm sure there's, and then I told my friend Rachel, I'm not on TikTok, I guess, cause I'm like old, but I don't know. I just I already get lost on Instagram. I can't join another thing in the mix. And she's like, that's what the TikTok psychics have been saying too. And I'm like, well, shit, we're all getting something. So I do get the sense that they have a sense of what's going on, Yeah. What about you?
Yeah. I mean, I've always pondered this question. And honestly, the whole point of this podcast, really, I mean, aside from it just me being super fascinated in all of this stuff, I'm on a bit of a mission just to try and get these questions answered that I've got. And I probably never will get them answered, but having different perspectives is going to help me to kind of come to more of a conclusion. But I think for me, I'm on the fence. I mean, I think it's interesting because you hear experiences where the spirit doesn't seem to be aware of where they are, or they still feel like they're in their time period, or they, I've heard stories from close sort of relatives, friends and family, stories set in the UK, for example, where I think it was my partner's grandfather had gone into an attic and saw a couple of, I think it was Roman soldiers fighting, having a brawl. And her uncle was also there, and he went up the stairs. He was like, oh, what are you doing? And he saw it too, so that it was a shared experience.
Whoa.
And they saw these soldiers just having it out. And obviously in the UK, we've got so much history. So, and this was in a building that dated way back, or at least the land dated way back to Roman times. And they're just these two centurions, really clear with armor on and everything, having this full on brawl. And then it just went away. And you think, well, surely they're not having a brawl in modern day. Maybe this is like a replay, and that's something you hear a lot as well. You hear of kind of replays happening, and so it might be 2 or 3. It could be different things, I suppose. Maybe some spirits come to that awareness and they are aware of, oh, I'm in 2024 and it's shit, or they are kind of stuck in that Roman or World War II or Victorian period, going about what they think is their life, and it's so fascinating to me because you hear so many different things, and it's like, well, maybe there's just different dimensions that where time works differently. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you brought up such a good point. Oh, there goes a motorcycle. Because I do think sometimes it seems to me that spirits get caught on kind of a loop, and they don't know what year it is. So I wonder if that's what was going on with them. That is so crazy. That is so cool. Wow.
Yeah, the time loop stuff.
Yeah, and then if it just feels like an eternal, just loop and a forgetting on the loop or something. Yeah. There's definitely residual energy in a space. My parents' house has weird ass residual energy in it, and stuff that used to wake me up at night. And then when my niece was home this past Christmas, she woke up and said the same thing I used to say when I was little, and my mom was sort of blown away because she always thought I was just hearing things. She was like, she said the same thing. Yeah. So sometimes there's residual. Yeah. No, it's so fascinating.
It is, isn't it? And the thing that got me into the paranormal was an experience I had in it's always a Victorian house, but it was genuinely a Victorian house in a small town called Richmond in North Yorkshire in England.
Oh.
and it dated back to the 1800s. I'm going to do an episode, spoiler alert for everybody listening to this, but I will do an episode at some point speaking about my experiences.
Yeah.
Because there were so many, and it happened to my whole family. But in short, there was something going on there. We'd hear kind of walking or running up and down the stairs. And the most bizarre thing that happened was we all left for the day, went out and, went somewhere. I think it was a farm, came home. And I was the first to walk through the door into the kitchen, and the dishwasher that I'd loaded just before we left was completely unloaded and stacked neatly on the table. So all the plates, small plates, large plates, bowls, knives and forks, everything it was stacked so perfectly and neatly, like somebody with OCD had put it all there. And it was all dry. It was clean. So somebody or something had gone into the dishwasher, taken everything out, dried it, and stacked it neatly on the table. And obviously we didn't have a cleaner. Nobody was home. There was absolutely, to this day, nothing that could explain what happened there. And that was just one of the many experiences. And anyway, when we left that house, we ended up moving to France. So I moved to France for a few years.
Cool.
And once we'd left, my friend ended up moving in and experiencing things. And we found out that the previous owners before us had a psychic medium in, and the medium felt the presence of a young maid from the Victorian era. And this is something that's got me questioning it. I'm like, well, okay, so that maid knew how to operate a dishwasher, but they're also doing maid duties. And it kind of got me in this. I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. Are they just doing what they think they should be doing in their own era, but also using modern? Do they see it as a dishwasher, or do they see it as a cupboard? It's so fascinating to me. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, that's my kind of experience with it, and that's why I find it so hard to kind of give a definitive answer from.
Yeah,
it's tough, isn't it?
Yes, that is that. Gosh, that is so. I got goosebumps when you told us. Sure, and I actually was seeing a woman with kind of like ruddy cheeks, like kind of like pinkish cheeks. Yeah, and I feel like an anxiety and an earnestness in her to do well. And kind of like a loneliness, like she is taking the job there and is a little bit further from her family. Like maybe her family's a little even further north. And, yeah. And it's crazy. Yeah. So it's like, gosh, that is so interesting because yeah, the present day and the past. Because when I feel her, I feel very much like her past. But then, like you said, the dishwasher, that is very present day, man. Gosh.
Yeah. Before I started this podcast, I went on a podcast called The Paranormal Podcast with Jim Harold, and it's a really old podcast now. It goes back to 2005. He's still doing it. He's part of my inspiration, actually. And I went on and told that story, and he called it the dishwashing ghost, but he found it fascinating as well, because I don't think he'd ever heard anything like it. And it's not something you really kind of hear very often. I guess you could almost relate it to kind of, poltergeist activity or something like that.
It's like it's like a nice poltergeist.
I'm more than happy for poltergeists to come and do my dishes.
They can same here. Come on over. Anybody wants?
Yeah, I wish it had attached itself to me, to be honest.
Yeah, if anybody wants to take my shit to the laundromat, they are more than welcome.
Oh yeah.
Gosh,
we need to start bringing them in and doing our chores.
Yeah. We don't need AI. We just need like a team of ghosts. Did you ever get the feeling when you were a kid that there was another younger person with you in the room?
I did when I was a teenager and all of this was happening.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely felt something in the room. I felt like there was something there, but I never really kind of knew whether it was a young person or kid or whatever.
Wow. So interesting, isn't it? Also, the dedication that certain spirits have to specific places,
Yeah.
Like, when I die, I really hope I am not, like, obsessed with this apartment in Queens. Like, it's a nice apartment right now. It's doing its job, but, like, I do not want to be here for eternity. So, like, but that's so interesting that some people really do. Like, the guy in my hallway, like, he just checks in. I don't know why, but
Guy in the hallway?
Yeah. The guy, I, like, see him in the hallway of, like, because we're in an apartment, so you walk in, there's like a little front hallway, and then you turn left into the kitchen. And I think my building was built in like the early 1900s, and because it has a quite small bathroom, small kitchen, which is the earlier builds tend to. And you guys have smaller spaces, but so I don't know what but like, but compared to when I visit my family in the Midwest, and everyone has this giant sprawling thing, it feels tiny. But yeah, he just like. It's like I don't know, maybe he's checking if the door is locked or something, but it's like he just kind of stands there for a second and then goes. And Yeah, he's like, yeah, he feels like somebody who immigrated to the United States. English is not his first language. He's not particularly friendly or unfriendly, but he makes his rounds and he stands there, you know?
It just makes you wonder, doesn't it? It's like,
Mhm.
why are they doing this? And what do they see? And I guess we'll never know until we
Until we die.
pass away. And
And like Alex, remember when we were wondering, wouldn't it be, gosh, do you think that maybe some of those spirits are like really extreme examples of people who were afraid of change in their living life?
I wonder. Yeah, it could be that. People who just don't want to, almost like a stubborn tenant or something, that just won't move.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Are they just not wanting to go, not wanting to leave? And I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, and yours is so interesting because the dishwashing gal, like this, she seems so sweet. It doesn't feel like she wants to cause a problem. She like really earnestly wants to help. That is so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, things happened that scared us, but it wasn't anything that we felt was malicious. Like, the running up and down stairs is probably the maid just going up and doing the thing. Or my younger sister was 1 or something at the time, really, like, well, less than that, but she was a baby pretty much. And her cot, she was always tucked in her cot every day. And that didn't happen before we moved to that house. She'd always just be really messy and fidgety, and her covers would be everywhere, and she was tucked in every single morning. It does give you this feeling of being cared for. And again, things make you scared. Like, I was in the front room once, and me and my older sister saw like somebody walk past the door, and there was no one home. And we were so convinced it was somebody because we called out to our parents. There was nobody there, and it freaks you out. But again, thinking back to it, it's probably just her walking past, and
I was like walking. Yeah, that's used to happen to me at night. I was on the side of the house, and I could hear someone walking across like the rocks, because there were rocks up front of my parents' house, and you could just hear this crunch, 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 3 a.m. every day. Like, yeah. So
weird,
crazy.
isn't it?
Yeah, that felt kind of like a drunk dude, but there was no one there. You know what I mean? I was like, you had a long night.
But you're so convinced, aren't you? And you kind of, I guess it almost makes you feel like you're going crazy, but it's like, you know what you saw, you know what you heard. Yeah, so it's always been quite fascinating. And I haven't had any real, I've had the odd experience since leaving there, but not a lot. I've had, I've heard my name whispered very loudly in my ear before, and I've had dreams where I've been kind of led somewhere else in the house, and then I've woken up, and, it's some really weird stuff's happened, but I've never had any experiences like that where I'm fully awake and there's physically things going on kind of day in, day out, which tells me, that maid is definitely kind of rooted in that house, that history. But yeah, it just comes back to the whole, are they just rooted in their history where they died, or do they sort of grow up with us? Well, not grow up with us, but do they see the advancements in actual life in the modern age and stuff? It's such a fascinating thing to think about,
but they feel like they need to keep doing what they were doing. Or I've never thought about this, or do they feel like their assignment is to stay where they were?
Yeah. Is that their kind of, is that what they're meant to do? Or is that what they enjoy doing, I suppose?
Yeah, they just they would rather be there. Yeah, spirits definitely interact with babies. That is so fascinating. I was asleep and my husband thought he heard me say like, okay, just go back to sleep now. Just go back to sleep. I heard, and and then he rolled over and I was like, just mouth safe. And he realized that he thought he had heard my grandma actually on the other side, who had kind of a similar quality to her voice. And she'd like, no, she was very funny. And so that's, he think it was her standing over his crib. And we had to, this is, every parent does this where you're like, they don't quite fit in a crib, but they're not quite ready for a toddler bed, And so we kind of we couldn't put the bed on the ground. Like we were kind of in this weird in between place, And so we actually got this guardrail that you pull, that people sometimes put on older people's bed. So they can't roll off. But we sort of rigged up a system. It's sort of like an in-between system for the time being. And it was the first night and I was like, oh God, please don't fall out through the crack. Oh, God. I was so anxious falling asleep, but it was sort of what could fit our living space. And so I straight up asked that grandma, I was like, I need you to help him stay in the bed. And he he not only stayed in bed, but he sat and played in the crib for longer than he has ever played the following morning. And there were all these books around him. And I just thought, she read to him. She read.
Wow.
She read to him because I
How
woke up
creepy,
at night. It was kind of a little creepy for him. And he does like sometimes I'll put him down for a nap and I'll find him standing in the crib and he's pointing to someone. And I'm like, who are you pointing at? I can't wait till he has more words. It's going to be so fun. I mean, I do try to set limits with spirits for him because if I do this thing called the Sunday Circle once a month and I channel for people, it's a group of people and I lead a meditation and then I go around and give messages. And so oftentimes people from the other side will come through and I have to remember to really like close it down at the end because otherwise, he keeps waving at people the whole night and it gets weird. Yeah. That magical baby H. Wow, you absolutely have to go back to that house. And I'm so excited to hear that episode.
Oh, I'd love to. I would really love to. In fact, I'd like to go back with a psychic medium or something and just see what they can sense, see what they can feel. It's incredible, really. And I know time's getting on. I've got one last thing I wanted to cover from both of us, really, because there's going to be loads of new people listening to this who aren't really, I mean, I'd like to think 99.9% of listeners have an open mind and they think, they are open to this discussion. That's why you'd listen to a paranormal podcast. I mean, I like to think most people won't go, oh, there's a paranormal podcast, I'm going to shit all over it for no reason. But when it comes to skepticism, how do you kind of deal with skeptics when people are like, nope, it's bullshit. Everything you've done is bullshit. Everything you say is bullshit.
That's a good question. Well, I've really been quite lucky with open clients, so when somebody's kind of relaxed and open, more messages tend to come through. So I think skepticism can lead to more skepticism because that's like what they're trying to see. And then I also I had one time who was like quite rude. And I just said, I'm going to stop this right here and I'm going to give you your money back because I think maybe you want a different fit or you don't actually want this. And that person actually kind of backed down and said, no, I'm sorry. And then opened it up and then we did have a nice reading. So it's sort of like, I just kind of am like, if I don't want to fight with somebody, so I just say, okay, that's fine if you feel that way.
I mean, it interests me that somebody would go to a reading and then fight you on it.
No,
it's
so
interesting.
Silly. And also,
surely you would have that open mind because that's what you go into the reading.
That's what you're going for. And also, if you're like trying so hard to have somebody say one specific thing, like I'm going to get all kinds of information. That's why I ask people to think of questions because I'll get all sorts of things coming through and it might be on a topic that they don't want to talk about or they're not interested in changing. Like spirit might bring up something that like I call it spirit that they don't want to look at, but actually could be really helpful and get a new flow going in their life, but they're not ready to touch it. So that's why I'm like, you set the agenda. I'll tell you what I see around the agenda that you're interested in and more things come in as well, always. So like, it's not just going to be the questions, but with skeptics, that's so interesting. And I just feel like, I don't know, because I really feel like openness creates a bigger opening, creates a bigger opening, creates a bigger opening. So that's why I love doing message circles because it just gets like, woo, like it opens up and like stronger and stronger as the hour goes. And I think, maybe skeptics can kind of see like, it's sort of like, a part of them must be interested enough to fight about it. And so perhaps when somebody is not a skeptic and is around a skeptic, their openness can kind of like maybe soften their skepticism just a tiny bit. But I do have to say, like, even if a skeptic just wants to say, like, I'm going to throw out the most random sign, and if the universe is real, show me this sign, I really think that they're going to get the sign back. I feel like they really find a way to do it in a way that you'll see it,
Yeah, and I think to a degree, skepticism can be healthy. It's good to question everything.
Yeah.
It's like with science and everything. Mm-hmm. It's good to question everything, but it's like with, I compare it to the ocean. We only know 5% of what's under the ocean. We don't know the other 95%. So how can I sit here and tell you there isn't a megalodon out there somewhere that's trying to, or a kraken or something like that? It's kind of, you can't physically know everything. It's the same with the God topic as well. You can't know there is or isn't a God because we just don't know. We only know tiny amount about the actual universe we're in. And even like when you think about the human body, I mean, I don't know much about my body. That's why I have to go to a doctor. So we know so little even about ourselves. So I think it's very crazy to me when you have stout atheists or stout skeptics and they're like, they're just like, yep, no, this is absolutely 100% not real, what you're saying, whatever. Yeah, I've always found it quite fascinating, especially the aggressive or rude people, because it's like, well, there's no need to be rude about somebody else's beliefs or practice. And so hopefully you don't get too many of those. But have you ever had a situation where you've managed to turn a skeptic around to a believer?
Yes, I have. And it was really fun. So this is like when I didn't understand my abilities and they were like really starting to kick up. So I was at a gathering for Christmas with some relatives, and there was a then boyfriend of the time who was quite skeptical. And I was like, let's play psychic Christmas card. And so I was just like, I didn't know any of the people on this basket full of Christmas cards. So I was just picking them up, and this is like long before I was giving readings. And I was like picking up and I was looking at the eyes and I was just saying the first shit that popped into my head. Right. And so it was just like kind of fun because like when I would get a hit, people would laugh because like, oh yeah, so-and-so does like only eat Taco Bell for lunch 365 a year, shit like that. And I got to this one particular person and I said, I'm seeing like that she was like working in a medical office of some kind and that she was nervous, but she was going to get a new friend and they were going to wear matching bracelets. It was so weird and specific. And then like, I shit you not, like 30 minutes later, that skeptical boyfriend, not mine, but anyway, skeptical boyfriend, who's a really nice guy, but he was skeptical, went on Instagram, saw a picture of this woman holding her wrist up next to another woman wearing matching bracelets. And he looked like he had seen a ghost. Like he was so afraid of me. But I think it really opened him up. So I was like, come on, Yeah, that one was so crazy. Cause I don't know, it was just like, you're kind of like Christmas is fun, but then sometimes when it actually comes around, like you're just kind of sitting there, And so anyway, so we were just kind of hanging out and that was really crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. It was just such a random thing that I said. And then it was just so weird that it immediately popped up. It was like spirit was, exactly. Trying to like knock that skepticism over a little bit.
It does sound fun to do that. So
it was fun. Yeah.
So if wrapping up, I suppose, if people want to come to you for a reading, which after this I'll definitely do myself, how do people find you and book a reading with you?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. So I have a website that is readingswithjenson.com, and it's Jenson, Jenson, like son of gents, but I'm a girl. And so on there, it has a section about book a reading, and then they can just honestly text me or, because my number's on there, or they can shoot me an email at Jenson, Jenson, Smith, SMITH, at live.com.
And do you offer both in-person and remote readings? So if people from the UK wanted to do it, for example, they could do that kind of remotely?
Absolutely. I Zoom with folks all over the world, or I've done all kinds of whatever people like. I usually use Zoom, but sometimes people like Google Video. There's so many options now. Yeah. I'm also on Instagram as Readings with Jenson, same spelling, Jenson. And so I'll see stuff on there too. But yeah, reach out. It'd be so fun, Alex, anytime. And anybody who's listening, reach out. I'm excited about your on location explorative ones too. Your old house sounds so fucking cool.
Yeah. Go back there.
Oh my God, you have to. Have you ever watched Help, My House is Haunted?
I haven't, but I think there's a celebrity version, isn't there? I've seen like clips and I keep meaning to watch it.
Oh my God. I don't know if I've seen the celebrity one, but I've seen the regular one. And it's so cool. And it just gets like juicier and juicier as it goes on. And gosh, why am I blanking on the medium from the UK is so amazing. His name is Ian something. I just love his work. Anyway, every time I watch that, I'm like, oh my God, I want to go there when I am.
So is it a UK show then?
Yeah, it is. It's
oh, I didn't realize.
It's produced by Zach Bagan, who has like a huge ghost hunting franchise here in the States, but it's a very different style than his personal show is. And especially with the medium, gosh, what is his name? It's Ian. Is it Ian Fleming? help, my house is haunted. Anyway, he is so beautiful about finding ghosts who need help crossing over. And so I just think that is a really good show. Ian Lawman. I wonder who Ian Fleming is.
Oh, didn't he write James Bond? I think he wrote James Bond.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah. Shout out to Ian Fleming.
Thanks, Ian Fleming. You know what? There was also one on there named Chris Fleming. I think Chris Fleming is also a medium, maybe. And so I think I combined their names, but also shout out to Ian Fleming. Nope. Chris Fleming is a comedian and an actor. Well, good job, Chris Fleming. Hey, Chris.
Shout out to Chris Fleming.
Shout out to Chris Fleming.
He might be listening. You never know.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you for finding me, Alex.
I'm glad to hear it. No, thank you for joining. I know it took us a little while, but we got here in the end. So
oh yeah, that's so funny. It was a real Mercury in retrograde. That was a nuts Mercury in retrograde. That was a real deal. Yeah.
It was. But yeah, I'm glad we finally got to talk. It's been fascinating. So thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you for having me.